So without even realizing it, you've probably fed your dog an entirely extra meal by like 2 o'clock this afternoon.
Oh, easily. It happens all the time.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
just picture a typical Saturday morning in your kitchen. You're bustling around, you're pouring coffee, maybe reading something on your phone, and a corner of your buttered toast just slips off the counter and hits the floor.
And it's gone before you even look down.
Exactly. Before you even have time to react, the dog has completely cleaned it up.
Mm.
And then, an hour later, there's a quick training session before heading out to run errands. So a handful of high-value treats get handed out.
Right, because you're training, so it doesn't really count, quote unquote.
Yeah, exactly. And a little later, maybe you toss them a dental chew just to keep them settled while you're on a long Zoom call. At lunch, a kid drops half a granola bar.
It just keeps adding up.
It really does. And then evening rolls around, you look down at the food bowl, you look at those massive, expectant eyes, and you think, honestly, he seems a little hungry today, so you just top off the bowl a tiny bit.
This is a little scoop.
Right, and individually, none of those choices feel like a big deal. They just feel like, I don't know, tiny, loving moments of daily life.
Yeah, in the moment, they feel completely innocuous. I mean, nobody wakes up and makes a conscious decision to overfeed their pet by 50%. It just happens through this slow drip of micro decisions.
But if you actually do the math and add it all up across the day, that dog has quietly consumed an entire second dinner, and the wildest part, he still looks exactly the same to everyone in the house.
Yep, not a single visible change.
So today's deep dive is for anyone who has ever looked at their dog, and specifically we're focusing a lot of our lens today on the Pembroke Welsh Corgi, and just felt a sharp pang of guilt because the dog acts like they haven't eaten a single calorie in a week.
They're very good actors.
Oh, the best. So if you have ever felt like a monster for saying no to those starving eyes, this conversation is going to be a massive relief for you. Our mission today isn't just to rattle off a list of recommended dog foods.
Right, that's not the goal here.
No, we are going to uncover the extremely stealthy, often surprising ways our modern habits are just on a direct collision course with our pet's evolutionary biology.
And framing it as an evolutionary collision is, frankly, exactly the right approach.
Yeah.
Because if there is one core principle we need to establish right out of the gate, it is this. Feeding a dog correctly means matching their nutritional intake to their actual physical reality.
Their physical reality.
Yeah, we're talking about their current growth phase, their tangible body condition, their muscle density, and their actual daily caloric burn. You have to match the food to that reality, not to how hungry they act.
And definitively not to how solid or, naturally sturdy they might look to the naked eye.
Exactly. You can't trust the naked eye.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can even begin to look at what actually belongs in the bowl, we really need to understand the psychology and the biology of why these dogs act like they are perpetually starving. The historical context here is absolutely fascinating.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because you have to look at what the working version of the Pembroke Welsh Corgi actually was. I mean, this animal was an absolute machine.
Just a powerhouse.
Right. Historically, these dogs were engineered to move cattle over vast, rugged terrains. They were covering immense amounts of ground, working outdoors in the freezing rain, the thick mud, the bitter cold, basically enduring every harsh weather condition imaginable.
Wow.
Yeah, so their bodies were burning massive amounts of energy all day long just to maintain their core temperature and, keep up with a herd of cows.
And their low stature wasn't just to look cute, right? It was specifically designed so they wouldn't get kicked in the head by the cattle they were herding.
Exactly. It's a highly functional design.
But keeping those short little legs moving fast enough to herd giant animals, that requires an unbelievable metabolic engine.
Precisely. They required a monumental appetite simply to survive and perform their jobs. Their genetics are essentially programmed to consume calories whenever they are available because, historically, those calories were immediately burned off.
So they needed this huge drive for food just to stay alive. But here's the disconnect, right? Today, that exact same dog gets like a leisurely 20-minute leash walk around a flat suburban neighborhood and then just rests on a plush rug in a climate-controlled living room for the next 8 hours.
Yeah, the lifestyle is completely different now.
It's like a retired Olympic athlete. Like, imagine a marathon runner who spent a decade eating 8,000 calories a day to fuel their intense training. They retire, they sit on the couch watching TV all day, but they still have the psychological appetite of a marathon runner.
That is such a good way to put it.
Their stomach just completely missed the memo that the marathon is over.
That is exactly what is happening on a biological level.
Hmm.
The daily metabolic expenditure has plummeted to almost nothing because the physical workload has disappeared. But that drive to consume calories, it remains intensely hardwired into their DNA.
Which makes total sense when you frame it that way.
Right. But there is a second layer to this. If we know they aren't actually starving from a biological standpoint, why are they so incredibly convincing?
Oh, the Academy Award-winning performances in the kitchen. The whimpering, the pawing, that intense staring.
Yes, the stare. We have to separate biological hunger from behavioral conditioning. These dogs, particularly working breeds like corgis, are socially sharp. They are highly observant problem solvers.
They're watching everything we do.
Oh, constantly. They often act ravenous due to learning history, daily routine, or, honestly, simply boredom. They have meticulously figured out the human dynamic in your specific household.
Oh, for sure. They know exactly which family member is the soft touch who will accidentally drop a piece of cheese.
Yep. They know the precise frequency of the sound the treat jar makes from 2 rooms away. They know that staring at you while you eat pizza often yields a crust.
It's just a game to them.
Exactly. It's a highly sophisticated, well-practiced behavioral request, not a genuine physiological cry for calories.
So we are essentially projecting our human emotional framework of hunger onto an animal that just views begging as a highly rewarding, highly successful game.
That's exactly what we're doing.
So, if we know we absolutely cannot trust the dog's dramatic acting skills to tell us when they need food, how do we know what to actually feed them? Because, walking down the pet food aisle today is just a masterclass in consumer anxiety.
Oh, it is an absolute ocean of marketing designed to prey on your emotions. You will see buzzwords plastered everywhere. Natural, premium, ancestral, holistic, fresh.
It's overwhelming.
It is, and we need to decode that language immediately. Those words are purely marketing fluff. From a regulatory standpoint, they do not offer any nutritional guarantee or scientific backing whatsoever.
But ancestral diet sounds so scientifically grounded. It makes you feel like you are feeding a tiny domesticated wolf exactly what nature intended.
I know, and it sells incredibly well, precisely because it taps into that exact feeling. But it's noise. It's just noise. The only phrase that carries actual legal and nutritional weight on that bag is complete and balanced for a specific life stage, as defined by organizations like AAPICO.
Okay, complete and balanced.
Right. A complete diet means the formulation has been chemically balanced to meet all of your dog's macro and micronutritional needs on its own.
On its own. So you don't need to add anything.
No complementary food, no fancy $50 bone broth topper, no extra vitamin chew is designed to do that. What actually matters is the clinical formulation, the rigorous quality control of the manufacturer, and how your individual dog's digestion and energy respond to it.
Okay, I have to stop you there because I want to push back on this a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
You're saying we have to find this perfect balance for our individual dog, but the feeding guide literally has a chart printed right on the back of the bag by the manufacturer. They design the food. They know exactly how many calories are in a cup. Why would they print a chart on the bag if it's not biologically accurate for my dog? Shouldn't I just strictly follow their math?
It is a completely logical assumption to make. I totally get that.
Yeah.
But you have to understand how those charts are generated. That feeding guide is merely a baseline. It's a starting point.
Just an average.
Exactly. The manufacturers calculate those averages, often based on intact, highly active dogs. That bag does not know the specific metabolic rate of your dog. It doesn't know if your dog sleeps on the sofa for 10 hours or does competitive agility training.
Right.
And it certainly doesn't know if your dog was recently spayed or neutered, which fundamentally alters their hormone profile and can significantly lower their baseline energy expenditure.
And crucially, that bag absolutely does not know that your dog has already consumed a dental chew, 3 training treats, and half a dropped granola bar before noon.
Exactly. This is the concept of death by 1,000 treats.
Death by 1,000 treats. I love that phrasing, even if it's a bit grim.
It's accurate, though. We inherently think of the 2 meals in the bowl as the dog's food, but we completely discount the hidden calories happening in the margins of the day. Using a chunk of cheese or a pill pocket every single morning to hide a medication, the rawhides, the little table scraps from dinner.
It adds up.
Fast. For a small, low-set breed like a Corgi, a single ounce of cheese is a massive percentage of their daily caloric requirement. It adds up exponentially fast.
And it isn't just about the sheer volume of calories when it comes to the table scraps, right? The biology of how they process our food is completely different.
That is a vital distinction, yes. Beyond just the caloric density, we need to understand the physiological danger of human food. Let's look at pancreatitis.
Okay.
A small bite of plain boiled chicken breast isn't going to harm them. But when an owner gives a dog high-fat foods from the dinner table, like the fat trimmings from a steak or buttery mashed potatoes, it can trigger an acute crisis.
How does that actually happen biologically? Like, does the fat just overwhelm their stomach?
It actually happens in the pancreas, which is responsible for producing digestive enzymes. A sudden influx of concentrated fat forces the pancreas into absolute overdrive. It rapidly produces a massive amount of these digestive enzymes, but instead of safely sending them out to the small intestine to break down the food,
In misfires.
essentially, yes. The enzymes activate prematurely while they are still inside the pancreas. So the pancreas basically becomes inflamed and starts aggressively digesting its own tissue.
Oh, wow. Digesting itself. That's awful.
It is an excruciatingly painful, life-threatening condition that requires immediate hospitalization.
That is terrifying, and it perfectly illustrates why a seemingly innocent treat from the table is playing Russian roulette with their internal organs. And that's not even touching on the outright toxicities, the chocolate, grapes, raisins, onions, and especially xylitol.
Oh, xylitol is incredibly dangerous.
Right, the artificial sweetener found in a lot of peanut butters and sugar-free gums.
Exactly. Xylitol causes a rapid, massive release of insulin in dogs, leading to profound hypoglycemia, or low blood sugar, which can cause seizures and liver failure within hours.
Within hours.
Yeah. So managing their diet is about managing the entirety of what goes into their mouth, 24/7.
So, if our eyes are deceiving us because of the begging, and we can't blindly trust the math on the back of the bag, human instinct says we just need to look at the dog to see if they're getting fat. But here's where it gets really interesting. We think we can just visually assess them, but the anatomy of these dogs turns out to be an incredibly effective optical illusion. It's what we call the fluff factor.
The fluff factor, it is the perfect term for it. We are highly visual creatures, so we naturally rely on our sight. But with certain breeds, sight is the absolute worst metric you can use.
Because a corgi, by structural design, has this very broad, barrel-like chest, a very low-slung structure, and a remarkably thick double coat designed to repel freezing rain.
Right, there's a lot of fur there.
That specific combination acts as the ultimate disguise for weight gain. They don't look soft or fat, they just look sturdy. They look robust and healthy to a human eye that is, frankly, pretty accustomed to seeing overweight pets.
That visual illusion is exactly why you absolutely must use your hands, not your eyes, to assess your dog's true body condition. You have to get physical and bypass the fur.
So just digging right in there.
Yep. When you firmly run your hands along the sides of their rib cage, you should be able to feel their individual ribs easily, almost like feeling the back of your own hand. You should not have to press hard through a spongy layer of fat just to locate them.
And it's not just about the ribs, right?
No, not at all. You also need to physically feel over their shoulder blades and their hindquarters to check for actual muscle definition, not just roundness or bulk. When looking from directly above, despite the fur, there should be a discernible waistline behind the ribs, and from the side, their abdomen should tuck up towards the back legs, not just hang straight across.
And since that thick double coat can completely erase the visual waistline on a day-to-day basis, there is a brilliant, actionable trick you can use. Take a photo of your dog from directly above, looking straight down at their back once a month.
This is such a great tip.
Yeah, keep those photos in a dedicated album on your phone. It allows you to objectively track their waistline trend over a long period of time, completely removing the day-to-day bias and the illusion of the fluff.
It is an incredibly smart strategy. The fundamental key here is that you should never wait until the dog is visibly, obviously overweight to the naked eye before you make a dietary change.
Because by then it's too late.
Basically. By the time a fluffy, sturdy breed like a Corgi actually looks fat from across the room, they have usually already put on a highly significant amount of excess weight. You have to track the subtle trends early and make micro-adjustments to their portions.
So if our eyes are failing us, the natural human instinct is to rely on cold, hard data. We take them to the vet, we put them on the digital scale, and we get a number. Let's say your dog weighed 30 pounds at age 2, and 6 years later at age 8, they still weigh exactly 30 pounds. Human logic says, great, the number is identical, we nailed it. But you're telling me even the digital scale is lying to us.
It isn't lying about the total mass, but it is completely hiding the composition of that mass. Scale weight alone cannot tell you what that 30 pounds is actually made of. As a dog ages, especially if they become less active, they often experience a steady loss of crucial muscle mass, particularly in their hindquarters. This is a process called sarcopenia.
So they are slowly losing the dense muscle, but the number on the scale isn't dropping.
Exactly, because they are simultaneously replacing that exact same weight with fat. Fat is less dense than muscle, so it takes up more space, but the total weight on the scale remains completely static.
Wow.
The number hasn't changed a single ounce, giving you this false sense of security, but their actual physical health, their metabolic rate, and their structural integrity are quietly deteriorating. This is precisely why the hands-on check for firm muscle matters infinitely more than the cosmetic number on a digital screen.
Let's dive deeper into that. Why does muscle matter so much more than just keeping the weight down? If the total weight is exactly the same 30 pounds, why is it such a biological crisis if that weight is fat instead of muscle? It's not like the dog is trying to win a bodybuilding competition.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, to understand why it's a crisis, we have to look at their highly specialized functional anatomy. Think about the mechanical engineering of a dog like a Pembroke Welsh Corgi.
Okay, engineering-wise.
They have an elongated spine that is suspended between very low-set joints. That specific skeletal structure is already doing a massive amount of physical work just to walk across a room, navigate a single step, or jump on and off a couch.
It's essentially a long bridge spanning a gap, but it has 0 center support columns.
That is the perfect analogy. It is a suspension bridge. Now, extra body fat isn't just static weight. It is dead cargo piled directly onto the center of that bridge. Every single time that dog jumps off the sofa, gravity multiplies the force of that extra fat, sending a massive shock wave directly through a spine that is already genetically prone to intervertebral disc disease.
And the muscle is what actually absorbs that shock wave.
Precisely. Muscle is dynamic. Muscle is the active suspension system that supports the bridge. Strong muscle actually holds that long spine in proper alignment. It stabilizes those low-angle joints, it dictates their balance, and it is the primary factor in their recovery if they do happen to tweak a ligament.
Which happens?
Oh, all the time. If you allow the muscle to atrophy and replace it with fat, you are entirely removing the suspension system while simultaneously adding heavier cargo. Maintaining muscle is not a cosmetic vanity project. It is high-stakes structural support that dictates their quality of life.
That makes the stakes so much clearer. We aren't just feeding to maintain a number on a vet's chart. We are actively feeding to protect the structural integrity of the dog. Okay, so if diet is this crucial for their anatomy, what happens when something goes wrong?
That's where things get tricky for owners.
Right. When an owner notices an issue, say the dog is constantly licking their paws, or they inhale their food so fast they choke, or they seem stiff, the absolute first instinct is to blame the kibble. Oh, it must be the chicken, or they definitely need a grain-free diet. But the reality of canine biology suggests our human intuition here is often completely backwards.
It is incredibly common to blame the food first, largely because feeding is the one variable the owner feels they can completely control. Let's tackle the allergy myth first, because chronic itching, ear infections, or constant paw licking is a huge complaint.
It's so common.
Very. When owners will immediately start randomly rotating protein sources, switching from chicken to lamb to salmon, or they'll jump to incredibly expensive grain-free, raw, or homemade diets.
So randomly buying a different flavor of food doesn't actually diagnose the root cause, and it might just be guessing in the dark.
It is absolutely guessing in the dark.
Right.
The biological reality is that true food allergies, which involve an actual IgE immune system response to a specific protein, are relatively rare in dogs. Yes. Chronic itching is far more likely to be an environmental allergy, like an intense reaction to seasonal pollen, dust mites in the carpet, or flea saliva. Or it could be a secondary yeast or bacterial infection on the skin.
So if it is actually a food allergy, how do you biologically prove it without just guessing?
If you genuinely suspect a true food allergy, it requires a strict, vet-controlled elimination diet. And this goes back to understanding the biology of the immune system. The immune system has a long memory.
Okay.
When you do an elimination trial, usually using a hydrolyzed protein where the molecules are broken down so small the immune system can't recognize them, you are biologically starving the immune system of those known triggers. You have to do this strictly for 8 to 12 weeks.
That's a long time.
It is, but that is how long it takes for the biological inflammatory response to fully reset.
And if we remember our death by 1,000 treats rule, If you are 6 weeks into a strict elimination trial and you give the dog a single beef-flavored heartworm pill, one random chew, or they eat a dropped French fry off the floor, you haven't just cheated on a diet. You have biologically re-triggered the immune response and ruined the entire trial.
Exactly. You are right back to day one.
Wow. Okay, what about the behavioral issues around food? What about the dogs that just inhale their meals, the ones who gulp down their kibble so aggressively they end up coughing, or they literally throw up unchewed food 3 minutes later? Is that a problem with the food itself?
No, it's a behavioral and mechanical problem, but it is highly solvable, and this is where you can brilliantly tap into that working breed intelligence we talked about earlier.
The herding instincts.
Yes. Instead of just dumping a pile of food into a metal bowl where they can vacuum it up in 10 seconds, you need to change the delivery mechanism.
Like using those slow feeder bowls that look like plastic mazes?
Slow feeders are great because the physical ridges prevent them from taking massive mouthfuls. But even better, you can use interactive food puzzles, or simply practice scatter feeding, literally tossing their kibble into the grass in the backyard.
I love the mechanics of that. You're forcing them to use their brain and their nose to earn the meal, which perfectly mimics their historical job of working all day.
Precisely. It brilliantly satisfies that hardwired working instinct. It significantly slows down their physical eating, so they actually digest the food properly without regurgitating. And the best part, it burns mental energy without adding a single extra calorie to their daily total.
Now, because we've established that this breed is intensely, almost genetically food motivated, we need to highlight a major medical red flag. If you have a dog that usually views every single meal like it's a Michelin star event and suddenly they drop their appetite, sniff the bowl, and walk away, or lose interest in high-value treats, especially if they are acting lethargic or vomiting.
That is a massive, immediate red flag. With a dog whose biology is wired to never turn down a calorie, a sudden, unexplained drop in appetite is the equivalent of an emergency siren. It warrants a prompt veterinary visit. You do not just wait it out for 2 days to see if they get hungry later.
And while we are on the topic of veterinary care, we should also caution against owners trying to play doctor by heavily supplementing the diet or using preventive prescription foods.
Yes, this is a vital point about biological interference. People often assume that over-the-counter supplements are universally harmless. They will aggressively add pump after pump of fish oil for a shiny coat, joint supplements, and daily probiotics, operating under the human assumption that more is always better.
But those supplements are bound in fats and oils, so they are adding a massive amount of hidden calories.
They add serious calories, and biologically, they can actively interact with or inhibit the absorption of necessary medications your dog might be on. Furthermore, owners will sometimes read that a certain breed is prone to kidney issues or heart disease, so they will proactively buy a specialized prescription kidney diet for a perfectly healthy young dog.
Oh, just to get ahead of it.
Exactly. But you should never do that. Those specific clinical diets are mathematically formulated for diagnosed end-stage diseases based on actual blood work. They intentionally restrict essential nutrients like protein and phosphorus. Restricting those nutrients in a biologically healthy dog can actually cause severe harm.
So what does this all mean? We have covered a massive amount of ground today, traveling all the way from the historical, mud-soaked cattle trails of Wales right into the confusing, marketing-heavy aisles of the modern pet store. Let's synthesize the core biological and practical takeaways for you, the listener. First, do not let your dog's incredible acting skills dictate your household menu. Their begging is a highly conditioned operant behavior, not a biological starvation alert.
Absolutely.
Second, you absolutely need a realistic household system to track the entire day of food. That means the meals, the high-value training treats, the pill pockets, and the drop granola bars. Third, because of the optical illusion of the fluff factor, you must bypass your eyes and use your hands to physically assess their ribs and muscle mass and rely on that overhead photo trick to track their objective waistline.
And I could leave you with one final overarching insight. It is that creating a customized, biologically appropriate diet for your dog isn't about being obsessive or creating complex spreadsheets.
Right, it doesn't have to be stressful.
No, it is simply about being mindful of their anatomy and making small, consistent adjustments over time. You have to recognize that your dog's biological needs are not static. The calories they require during their rapid growth and puppyhood are vastly different from adult maintenance. Their metabolic rate will likely drop significantly after they are spayed or neutered.
Because the hormones change.
Exactly. And their needs will shift entirely again as they enter their senior years, where they might actually require a higher protein intake just to combat that sarcopenia and maintain that critical bridge-supporting muscle mass. It's about feeding the physical reality of the dog standing in front of you today.
Which brings us right back to that busy Saturday morning kitchen where we started. In our very human world, we use food to express incredibly complex emotions. Love, comfort, celebration, bonding. Tossing a piece of buttered toast to the dog inherently feels like a moment of deep connection.
It's how we show love.
It is, but we have to realize that we are taking our very human emotional framework and forcing it onto an animal whose biology was fundamentally designed for brutal physical labor and surviving on scarcity. It really begs a fascinating question. If handing over food has become our easiest, most default way of saying I love you to our dogs, what richer, entirely non-caloric languages of affection might we discover if we actually took the time to learn how our dogs prefer to be loved?
That's a beautiful way to think about it.
Maybe it's giving them an extra 15 minutes to just heavily sniff a new trail on a walk, giving them a complex puzzle to solve, or just some intensely focused playtime, just something to mull over the next time those massive expressive eyes are begging for a piece of your dinner.